Professor Layton vs Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney might just be one of the cleverest games I've ever played. The idea of two case-solving legends coming together for an adventure as epic as this is something no one could have possibly seen coming. In fact, not even Shu Takumi, creator of the Ace Attorney series himself, expected to be approached and asked to collaborate in the idea. It's been over a year since the game was released in Japan, and now it's finally being released over here in the West. Well, in England at least. Sorry America, but the news is you'll be getting a copy of the game later this year. Probably. This review is going to be in two parts. The first will be a spoiler-free review of the game for people who are potentially interested in buying it, or would like to hear the opinion of someone who's completed it without having the game spoiled for them. The second part of this review, which will be a different video, will analyze the game's story, characters, and twists. That video will certainly not be spoiler-free, however there will be a spoiler alert to ensure no one has the game ruined for them. So, without further ado, let's get started. The story begins with Professor Layton and his apprentice Luke Triton receiving a letter from an old student about a mysterious town called Labyrinthia, intriguing the duo and setting them off on a journey to discover the town's secrets. In other words, classic Layton first act. Meanwhile, Phoenix Wright, alongside his assistant Maya Fey, are on a flight to London to participate in an attorney exchange program which sees Phoenix defend a girl accused of theft and assault. As I said before, I'll go more in depth with the game's story in the second part of this review. The game centers around both duos rather well, not spending too much time on just the Professor or Mr. Wright. Some will argue that during the trials Phoenix stands out from the crowd, and this is true. However, that doesn't diminish Layton's moments in which he shines in the courtroom. Aside from the classic Ace Attorney style courtroom segments, investigations are a lot more reminiscent of Layton's games, in both the ways you navigate, socialize, and of course, solve puzzles. It will be no surprise to anyone familiar with the Professor Layton series that this entry is full to the brim of brain teasers, mazes, and riddles. While the selection of puzzles this time around seems slightly less difficult than your usual dose of thinking outside the box, they still provide enjoyment, as well as a challenge that will have you itching to use your hint coins, a Layton mechanic which also makes its way into Phoenix's trials. Aside from using hint coins to help at puzzles, you can also use them to find contradictions if you're stumped in court. Speaking of which, the game's new mechanic of cross-examining multiple witnesses at the same time works wonders. At first, the idea of having several people testify simultaneously sounds a little daunting. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. Having witnesses recall events side by side allows you to cross-reference each testimony and point out when two or more witness accounts don't add up, alongside pressing and presenting evidence to contradict testimonies as per usual. As for the witnesses themselves, they'll have you drowning in character. There is hardly any witnesses you're likely to forget. Each have distinct personalities and designs which lean slightly towards Layton's style. However, the colourful and unique personas which come across in court are just as interesting as any witness to ever be cross-examined by Mr. Wright. It's hard to say if you'll spend more time in court rather than solving puzzles, as it really depends on the way you play the game. If you're more invested in the story, several puzzles are optional and can be bypassed. A nice addition to the game is the fact that any puzzles you don't solve will be saved in a place you can go back to whenever you feel like solving a brain teaser or two. For your average player, this game will most probably take you over 25 hours to complete. There is certainly a lot of content, not to mention downloadable bonus puzzles and episodes you can obtain for free after completing the game, an addition I'm going to assume Capcom had no hand in making. But that's a rant for another time. Additional bonus content includes artwork, developer notes, and the soundtrack of the game. For the record, the soundtrack of Professor Layton vs Ace Attorney is in my opinion its strongest aspect. Not only does the game orchestrate incredible original soundtracks, but it also covers phenomenal soundtracks, such as Layton's main theme, to Phoenix's objection theme. While these are two major songs the game covers, you'll be surprised at just how many tracks the game pays homage to. Needless to say, you'll be downloading, legally purchasing this game's soundtrack before you know it. It is truly a masterpiece. As for the game's voice acting, Christopher Robin Miller returns as Layton and delivers a stellar performance, as usual portraying the professor, to put it simply, as a true gentleman.
That is the reason why they had witch trials, do you see?
Witch trials?
While I would have preferred Sam Riegel to return as Phoenix after his performances in both Dual Destinies and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Trevor White provides that perfect high yet powerful tone familiar to the dashing defense attorney.
I know you're excited, Maya, but can a guy get a few last Z's in?
This is no time to be sleeping. You won't win in an English court of law with that attitude.
Aside from our protagonists, the only other voices that really stand out are a few of the major characters I'll talk about in the next part of this review, to avoid spoilers this time around. Overall, however, the voice acting on occasion can be rather cringeworthy.
No, I'm not a witch! Please, I beg you to reconsider!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
For the most part though, it's pretty cool to see the characters break out of their beeping and booping they're accustomed to. A nice touch is how both characters' dialogue sound effects are from their own games respectively. Unfortunately, there's not much more I can talk about without delving into spoiler territory. Since this game relies so heavily on its narrative, even delving into some of the minor plot points would make me feel like I'm robbing you of the experience. The Ace Attorney games have always been more of an interactive novel as opposed to a game, and this is no exception. All I can say is, if you're a fan of the Layton series, you're going to adore this game. If you love the Ace Attorney franchise, you're going to adore this game. Furthermore, the crossover of mechanics may even interest you into trying the other series. Both have their own incredible entries, which, believe it or not, you need absolutely no prior knowledge of to enjoy this game. While it throws references around every now and again, Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright is an experience anyone can approach and enjoy, with zero experience in either series. Finally, let's talk about the title. The game's title suggests that Layton and Wright are going to be facing off, however that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, from the get-go, both parties start assisting each other to uncover the mystery of their predicament, so many might wonder why on earth the word versus is in the title. Believe it or not, there is a valid and intriguing answer, however I'll have to elaborate on that in the next part. During part 2, I'll be analysing the story, what the game did right, where it potentially went wrong, and last but certainly not least, what it did really right. Until then, this is Jack Jennings signing out, hoping you have a great day and a better tomorrow.